Welcome into NFL on 365 Sports. I'm your host, Grayson, and today we are talking about the losers in free agency. If you missed my last episode, we talked about the winners, so it wasn't all bad. There was some good, but let's talk about some of the losers today. All right, so the losers during free agency, I think are going to be pretty apparent because all of them had major changes at a position or at the quarterback spot and haven't been able to address them yet. Now, I do know the NFL draft is coming up, so a lot of changes will take place for a lot of these rosters, but at the current moment, a lot of these teams have tons of downgrades at some of the most important positions, or they lost a premium player and are going to have trouble replacing them. So the first one, and I think I needed to start with them just because it's a huge storyline and one of, honestly, the craziest trades I've ever seen. So it's the Kansas City Chiefs. And the reason I say that is because I was on my phone, back when this happened. Early in the day, I'm on a walk outside and I get a message. Hey, Tyreek Hill can't come to an agreement with the Chiefs. Valdes-scantling is visiting the Chiefs. No big deal, right? About 30 minutes later, it starts saying Jets and Dolphins have major interest. There's trades on the table. This just whole crazy scenario took place in about 30 minutes, and then about 15 minutes later, he was traded to the Miami Dolphins. I mean, what in the world? It just was absolutely crazy. It was a complete landslide, and I didn't see it happening at all. So as far as the Chiefs go, I want to just kind of preface my comments here by saying the Chiefs made a great move, in my opinion. Tyreek Hill is a smaller wide receiver who relies on his speed, and Tyreek is an amazing receiver, don't get me wrong, but the assets they got back for Tyreek Hill were huge. I mean, now they got 2 first-round picks. They can go address the wide receiver position in the first round, so they can figure out a replacement plan for him. While getting a wide receiver, they'll get to pay cheap for quite a few years on a rookie contract. They got JuJu at wide receiver. They got Mecole Hardman at wide receiver. They got Travis Kelce at tight end. So there are still some weapons. They went out, got MVS as well, so they have a deep field threat. They're going to draft a wide receiver, so they'll have one more weapon in the offense eventually. They went out and got Ronald Jones, so he'll be the running back there with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which obviously murks up that backfield a ton. Both of those guys impacted fantasy-wise. Rojo, positive. CEH, very negative. And then as far as Patrick Mahomes goes, it impacts him as well. He doesn't have Tyreek Hill, and that's tough. It's the first time in his career he hasn't had Tyreek Hill, on the Chiefs. He's had stretches without him, and he was pretty good during a 4-game stretch a few years ago without him. But I think in general, consistency-wise, that sample size is not big enough. So I do think it affects him. Now, they do have to figure out a way to spread the field. They did that with MVS. They'll do that with whoever they take in the draft because they need room in the middle of the field for JuJu and Travis Kelce to continue to operate in the slot. And of course, just on those closer to the line of scrimmage routes. And so I think that's the biggest thing. They got to address the position. But without Tyreek Hill there, it's going to be tough because Tyreek Hill is a legit superstar, a difference maker at the wide receiver position. Moving on to the next team, it's a very similar situation. Now, many people could say, how can they be a loser? Because the Packers were able to get Aaron Rodgers back. And that is very fair, very true, because they did make that happen. But they did lose Davante Adams, who is a guy who's built an amazing connection with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, every time I watch those guys play, they are just on the same page all the time, consistently throughout the entire game. And so without Davante Adams, Aaron Rodgers is going to have to find someone else to rely on. And I don't see that guy on their roster. When you look kind of at what they've assembled, I mean, Armani Rogers, I don't know about him really. Allen Lazard, I think he's an okay wide receiver 3. I don't think he's a wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 1. They lost MVS, so now I honestly think they're going to have to figure out a way to take 2 wide receivers in this next draft. They're probably going to have to use a very early pick on a wide receiver. Finally do it for Aaron Rodgers, please. Finally, go draft a wide receiver early. Get him a talented weapon to put in the offense. You basically have to now because you just lost one of, if not the best wide receiver in the entire NFL. The only fantasy implication I see on this team is this is a huge upgrade for Aaron Jones as a pass catcher. Because he's proven to be a nice safety blanket for Aaron Rodgers. I also think the run game in general will be relied upon a ton with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. So hopefully they're able to draft a weapon and actually hit on that weapon to allow Aaron Rodgers to continue his MVP-like play over the last few seasons. Moving on to my next loser, and this is definitely more of a fantasy take on my part, because Trey Lance is now the starting quarterback for the 49ers, and I think it hurts everybody. Because Jimmy G was not going to do anything with his legs. Jimmy G was going to hand the ball off, run play action, throw the ball to George Kittle, throw the ball to Debo, and that was it, right? So now with Trey Lance, you have this kind of weird situation where I think Elijah Mitchell is going to get a ton of carries, but will his goal line carries get taken by Trey Lance? Will Trey Lance look like a Jalen Hurts? Then on the flip side, will Trey Lance run so much that he's not going to throw the ball to Debo, Kittle, and Ayuk? I just think it's one of those situations where I think they all get a little bit of a downgrade because it's a young quarterback. You don't know what to expect. Whereas with Jimmy G, you knew exactly what to expect with him. So I'm very curious about the 49ers, very curious as to what they decide to do with their roster going forward. But it does look like Trey Lance is going to be their guy. And I think for fantasy purposes, it's a downgrade. And honestly, for real life purposes, the 49ers have been very competitive for quite a few years. You know, are they going to continue to be that competitive with Trey Lance at quarterback over Jimmy G? I think the ceiling's higher, but I don't know if the floor is for the 49ers. Moving on to Seattle, the Seahawks, they lost Russ. I mean, that's an automatic downgrade for DK, Lockett, Rashad Penny, Chris Carson, the entire team, honestly. They're not going to be as explosive offensively. I think they're going to retool the defensive side a little bit and put more of an emphasis on that and the run game. I like the two-headed monster of Carson and Penny if they can stay healthy. So I like that part, but I'm very concerned about the quarterback position and concerned about kind of how do they address it, and also how do they continue to be productive on the offensive side when they've been trying to mask a really suspect defense over the past few years. I don't know how that's going to work out for them. And without Russ, it's just a downgrade in general. They did get Noah Fant back, but again, if you don't have someone to throw him the football, it's very hard to rely upon that. And no, Drew Lock, Geno Smith are not the answer. Finally, I got more quarterback controversy teams. I'm going to put all three together because I don't really know what to expect, to be honest with you. Carolina Panthers, draft a quarterback, roll with Sam Darnold. Either way, they're probably not going to be a playoff team again, which means there's an opportunity for a potential coaching change in Carolina, to be honest. And, you know, Matt Rule came in with high expectations, but they haven't won a lot of games, and they still haven't solved the quarterback position. So I think they'll probably draft one. But again, what's that ceiling like for a rookie quarterback or for Sam Darnold with this Panthers team that seems to have a lot of question marks? The Commanders, on the other hand, went out, paid for Carson Wentz, overpaid for Carson Wentz, in my opinion, and now they're going out there with him at quarterback. How much better does that really make them? I think he's better than Taylor Heineke, but again, in those crucial moments, is he going to be able to step up and rise to the challenge? He hasn't been able to do that over the past few years, and for the Colts last year, I mean, that performance against Jacksonville is really all you need to know about where he is currently at. Now, as far as the weapons go, maybe they'll have better years. Antonio Gibson, Terry McLaurin, maybe they'll be better with Carson Wentz at quarterback numbers-wise, but I don't know if that will correlate to more wins for the Commanders football team. And then finally, the Atlanta Falcons. They lost their guy, their leader, their general, Matt Ryan, and now it's a completely new age for the Atlanta Falcons. They're going to have to draft a quarterback, retool, kind of all over the place. They have a lot of holes. I mean, that team is just really barren of talent. They got Kyle Pitts, which is cool. Cordero Patterson was a fun story. I don't think he's crazy talented. They need to address the running back position. They need more wide receivers. They let Russell Gage go to Tampa Bay, a division foe. So they're going to watch Russell Gage probably put up 200-yard games on them this year. I mean, it's just a mess in Atlanta, and they have $40 million dead cap that they spent on Matt Ryan. So really tough situation, but they have a lot of draft picks. They have the opportunity to go out and just completely start fresh. And I'm very curious to see where they go. But with Marcus Mariota at quarterback, that team is not going to be very good this year. I would be very surprised if they won more than 5 games next season, and everyone fantasy-wise takes a big hit. I think Kyle Pitts, who I was sitting there thinking, man, this guy could be the tight end 1 for a team next year for the Falcons in fantasy. I don't see that anymore with Marcus Mariota at quarterback. So that's it for the losers. Again, it wasn't all bad. Check out my last episode for the winners during NFL free agency. But for Grayson Grunefer, this has been NFL on 365 Sports.